Well, how about a little Bible news and reviews for 2025? As February is about to close out, Frank thought he would post some information. Let's start with the murder of 70 Christians in the Democratic Republic of Congo, killed by an ISIS affiliated terrorist group, beheaded. Of course, it's always nice to see that Islam has such love for Christians and others that it doesn't consider worthy to live. But the problem with this story, the disturbing part is, did the neighboring country of Rwanda encourage this terrorist group to carry out acts in the Congo? That's the disturbing thing. We have a lot of people in this world that mean others harm in the name of religion or politics or some other thing. And so when you look at this story about the brutality, who's really behind it? Is it strictly a terrorist Islamist group, or were they encouraged by so-called Christians in another country? If that is the case, that's really tragic. Because I think back on a time in history, I think it was the year 1261, when the European or Roman Christians invaded Constantinople and eventually were pushed out. And the savagery associated with the Crusades, not just against Islamists and Jews, but against Eastern Christians as well. You know, the Master Yeshua Messiah said in Matthew, many would come to him, chapter 7, verses 22, 23, and say, Lord, Lord, haven't we done many great things in your name? And he'll say, I never knew you. Depart from me, those of you who work lawlessness. It's not just believing in false prophets and false teachers, but you participate in lawlessness. One of the problems of the Middle Ages was one so-called Christian fiefdom or kingdom slaughtering others to gain influence and powers. And I forget the name of the Pope that had to write a letter to his so-called Christian subjects and Christian kings to stop killing each other. See, here's the problem. They profess Christ or the Messiah, but do not possess him, and neither him them. In name only are they believers in Yahushua of Nazareth, of even that. And this is a tragedy that we're looking at as we're seeing England, Scotland, and much of Western Europe bowing the knee to what 100 years ago they would have never considered bowing the knee to, in the influx of Islamist radicals into those countries. So that's one thought of news and Bible reviews. We're going to move on to a couple of other subjects, so hang around. Moving along in the review of Christian news items, we look at the Pope Francis health situation. They say as of the 26th, he's improved slightly, but the Roman Catholic Church could be looking on a conclave pretty soon, considering the Pope's diminished lung capacity from, I don't know what type of injury, what happened to him as a very young man, but he lost part of a lung. And evidently he has some improvement. But unfortunately, when we all get up there in age, we start having problems show up. So he's been kind of a controversial figure, though most people in and out of the Roman Church think of him as the most pastoral pope. He's also had some controversy. But what about the whole idea of a big supreme religious leader, one who has the title of the Vicar of Christ? Different perspective than some churches have and some denominations and sects. But who does the Bible say is really the head of the church, so-called, or the assembly? It says that Messiah is the head of the assembly. So really, when you look at the Western Church and the Eastern Church, in the Eastern Church, they have metropolitans. They don't have one supreme bishop. They have a collection of bishops that rule the Eastern Church. Many people don't know, in America, at least at one time, the church was one unit. It's 1054 that the Eastern Church and the Western Church split over, for one thing, the idea of a supreme bishop, marriage of clergy, and a few other issues. And since that time, there's been two branches of the Universal or Catholic Church promoting themselves as the correct or true church. Well, I hope the man gets better. But in religion, I just have one question. Is Christ or Messiah your head? Or are you following a man? Whether it's the Pope or your pastor or some prophet on TV. You best be following the Messiah himself. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 1. As Paul said, follow me as I follow Messiah. Just my thoughts on that issue, and we'll move on to some more issues. Now, moving on to more news in the religious sphere, at least in the Middle East with Israel and Gaza. The sad butchery of women and children by Hamas that were held hostage, and all that's happened there. Many people know the news already. The Bibas family. I hope I'm saying the name of the family right. Forgive me if I mispronounced it. Well, Israel in 2005 gave the Gaza Strip away to the modern day Philistines or Palestinians, and it's been nothing but bad neighbor for many years with rocket attacks and all kinds of stuff. And 2007 rolled along, and the unprovoked attack by Hamas at the end of the Feast of Sukkot, in fact, on the last great day, at least by the rabbinical calendar, launched the situation. Biblically speaking, the Bible has a lot to say about Gaza, Damascus, and then we're going to talk some about that because we'll get into a little bit about the reconstituting of the caliphate, probably pushed by Turkey. But you had this whole situation where the dispute over disarming Hamas bedevils efforts to extend the Gaza ceasefire, an article in the Washington Post. Well, you know, why would you let a bunch of thugs camp next door to you? In fact, I had that happen one time. I lived in a rent house, and literally a bunch of drug dealers and gang members moved into the next house next door. They rented it, and there was fights and shootings and all kinds of stuff going on till the police finally took care of the situation. But I remember a time talking to my dad and others in America, if you had that kind of happening with thugs and criminals at your next door, the men in the community might have gotten together and dealt with that. And that's what Israel has, had to deal with. This tragedy that didn't have to happen. Gaza could have been a prosperous area for the Philistines. But prophecy rolls along, and folks, you better understand it. If you don't, you better pray real hard and get up to speed on it, because it does affect your life. It doesn't affect just the modern state of Israel with all the tragedies and stuff, but the whole region. Things have been reshaped, so some of the Gaza prophecies play into that in a major way. Moving on, just to touch on the idea of the reconstituted caliphate under Turkey, this is something I said years ago. Now I see a lot of Christian commentators in the last 6 months or a year talking about this, and I couldn't get a Christian to pay attention to me 5, 6, 7 years ago on this. Turkey has had a spiritual, mental metamorphosis back to what it was 150 years ago, and that's where they want to take it. And it's going to be even more of a unusual time as we deal with that, because Turkey's a member of NATO. That might have some real prophetic overtones when it comes to end time events. Speaking of all that, I guess to put a bow on this commentary, Pesach and unleavened bread, the feast of unleavened bread, are coming up here in April. I think it's the 13th. Most of the calendars, whether they be the standard Jewish calendar or the Aviv calendar, or even some of the conjunction calendars, are all only going to be a day off this year. And as we prepare for those times and we reflect on being delivered out of Egypt, remember the prophecies state that Israel in the future will be delivered in a second Exodus out of the greater Egypt, or the whole world. And that's what we look forward to. The blood of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world, made it possible for you to be grafted into his covenant people. It's not without cost, though, folks. Yeshua said you'd have to take up your cross, stake, whatever you prefer, and follow him. So as we close this little commentary session out, we pray for you and your family this upcoming spring feast season that's not too far off. And we'll see what more events unfold from a biblical perspective in the news of the times you live in. Shalom on your home. See you soon.